Just starting my fourth or something video of the day, my first day on YouTube. Pretty excited. It's fun talking about things. I'm trying to keep it concise and to the point and not too boring, but that can be hard. So a thing that I just thought of that I would really love to share with literally anybody who feels like seeing it is if you want to watch the other video that's about my view of nihilism or my view of the world, this is just sort of a follow-up to that, talking about how it can be a relaxation or de-stressing technique. This may come as a surprise to some people, or it may sound really bad, or I'm sure a lot of people will have problems with this idea, and probably catch shit from it if anybody even ever watches this. If I get even one view, they'll probably lose their shit over it. But I personally find that knowing that my life is meaningless, that it's never going to actually do anything meaningful, anything real, it's just going to interact with other things and cause some sorts of effects that I can't even predict. That's what my life is going to do. That's what your life is going to do, whether you like it or not. Knowing that, I find to be very relaxing. It doesn't demotivate me. I still get intense joy out of working at my job and doing a good job at my work. Trying to accomplish things and do the best I can, and I have all kinds of goals and aspirations, but none of those goals or aspirations are based on some idea that I'm gonna leave a legacy or really change things or do. It's not about that. It's just about, for me, it's about the joy of having a puzzle to bite into, as something to achieve, a goal, like a puzzle to solve, something to bite into, to achieve, to get somewhere. It's just that satisfaction. It's just the thrill of the hunt in my own life, the thrill of setting a goal and hunting it down. So I don't think they mean anything or lead anywhere. And even when I do a good deed for someone, it's not because I think it's going to change any higher thing or give me to some afterlife or do anything. It's just because I feel like doing it, and honestly it feels good doing it. I dare anyone to tell me that you don't get some personal satisfaction out of helping some old lady carry her groceries. Like, it feels good. If it doesn't feel good, then don't do it. It's fine. I'll do it. Whatever. But I find that nihilism is a relaxing technique. It's a relaxing way of looking at the world, and it's a relaxing thing to remind yourself and myself. Because when the world is overwhelming and when the world is stressful, and let's say there's people being, work is hard, or there's social setting is really hard, or there's a difficult time in a relationship, I just really find that nothing takes the stress off like knowing that it doesn't mean anything. That relationship, that job, that whatever, that it's all transient. Transient basically just meaning it's going to go away. Whether you like it or not, you're going to die. And everybody you're talking to is going to die, and everybody in your work is going to die. And none of it's going to amount to anything. And literally the only consequences of your actions are the consequences that actually really happen right there and then. And the things that spread out from that. So that's all you really have to worry about. And I find that very relaxing. I find it makes my life a lot easier and a lot happier. And I think it can really help you. I find it comforting to know that death is around the corner. I find it comforting to know that I could die at any time. It means that I don't have to worry like, oh, but what if I don't do everything perfect, and what if I screw something up, and what if it's like, well, then you screw it up. Then it's not the way that somebody else wanted it to be. I know it's kind of a vague, ambiguous way of seeing things, and it might seem like I'm not really telling you anything meaningful right now, but it's not about the conclusion you reach with the nihilistic understanding. It's really about the journey. It's really about the process of putting the world through this lens, and just try it for yourself sometime. If you're not too afraid of it. A lot of people are afraid of it, but put the world through that lens. Be close to death. Be aware of death. Be unafraid of death. I personally am okay with the idea of killing yourself. I think that's I don't think it's not a thing I would encourage in anyone. It's their choice. It's not me. It's not my place to ever encourage that in anyone. And because it's really upsetting to a lot of people, and whatever. But I like the idea of you have self-determination, and at any point, if you want to, life can end. So there's death right around the corner, and there's death if you want it. And really, I personally find comfort and happiness knowing that if worse comes to worse, I could always just die. This is the part that I usually offends people or bothers people. But I don't know what to say. It's the honest truth. I've felt that way most of my life. I just know that, well, if I'm getting really stressed and you get like kind of panic attacky, or there's something overwhelming going on in your life and you can't handle it, whatever. I'm not saying kill yourself, but just have this understanding that don't worry. Like there's a worst case scenario. It's an exit strategy, and death really isn't that bad. It's just nothing. You just stop thinking. You just don't exist anymore, and that's it. There's no, I don't have to worry about the afterlife because there isn't one. And I know there isn't one. I'm almost certain that there is no sort of hell or heaven. Your brain rots when you die, and any sense of identity I have comes from the way my neurons interact with each other, and the way they interact with my body and my chemicals. So once those stop doing that, there's no me left to even give a shit about anything. So knowing that death is final, that it doesn't mean anything, and that I have a worst case scenario plan, all of a sudden it also puts things in perspective, because then I realize that I'm like, wow, I'm willing to consider death rather than whatever this trauma or this thing I'm going through is. And all of a sudden it just makes it seem trivial, even when it is serious, even when it's someone else in my life dying, even when it's somebody else in my life, something major in my life going wrong or happening or whatever. When all of a sudden you realize, well, I can always just die, you're like, well, whatever's going on now really isn't that bad then. It's really not. Is it worth dying over? The answer is almost, it should always be no. Most of the time. So then there's nothing to worry about. And like I said, this isn't a conclusion. I'm not reaching, this isn't a really nice, solid, in a box conclusion of well, this is the answer, this will solve your problems. It's more just this way of thinking, this way of comparing things to death, this way of comparing things to nothingness, and understanding that they're part of nothingness, is just a process that I really encourage people to use, or at least attempt a little bit. I don't encourage anyone to start off with the death part. I don't encourage anyone to even start off considering death, but I encourage people to be aware of mortality and aware of the fact that your life can end and will end, and everyone else's will end. I think this will help people who are in a hard time overcome a lot of stress, and I think it'll do it in a very lasting way, because there isn't a constant need to now search for things to give value, to give meaning. It's the complete opposite. It's the letting go. No meaning, no value. Now decide your value. Decide whatever you want. It can be based on anything you want. It doesn't matter either way. And all of a sudden you now have free will, and that's the most beautiful thing ever. Instead of hoping and desiring for some intangible thing that you have no control over, and you don't even know if it exists, and there's no proof that it exists, and all these compasses, moral compass, and all these things, and they're telling you to feel certain ways, that sucks, and it hurts, and it's stressful, and you're constantly comparing yourself, and comparing yourself always hurts because you'll never live up to a standard. Instead, you just completely let go. You let go of everything. You realize that you don't give a shit, or that you shouldn't give a shit, because it doesn't mean anything. None of it matters outside of its own little realm of influence. And all of a sudden, you have the world in your hands. All of a sudden, you can embrace life. You can make whatever decisions you want. All of a sudden, you go, wait a second, that dude's not actually better than me? And the people who are mean to me or ostracizing me, they don't actually have any power? I mean, other than the social power they do have, they're not actually holding anything over me. They're not literally, whatever it is. Then all of a sudden you realize, well, I can just decide to be better than that. Or I can just decide to leave that. Oh, fuck it, I can move to a different city or country or whatever I want. And the only thing stopping you are the physical boundaries, figuring out a passport or whatever. This process helps you just get rid of that mental stigma that seems to control people, that sort of defeatist attitude of, I don't really know, and things seem difficult, and things seem like this, and when you realize that nothing means anything, fuck it, they just are what they are. That job that's holding you back, or that boss that's holding you back at your job, it's not scary, it's not intimidating, not compared to death. Death is, you're faced with nothingness every day. Every time you walk past a car, you could fall in front of it and die. You have the void constantly surrounding you, and you have a little sphere of influence, so use it. Have fun with it. Do it, whatever you want with it. It's awesome. Freedom.